Tonight, crews are still combing through the ruins of the station, searching for more answers in the deadliest U.S. nightclub fire in decades.
Saw means fire, boom, away we go. Then we'll save our balls of fire for the end.
That's fine.
Yeah. Okay, and we get...
It goes...
Everybody that was responsible could point their finger at somebody else. Yes, I did this, but he did this.
I wish there was something I could have done to stop that. I wish I had a magic dream the night before.
In the drummer's alcove were these bricks of foam that were polyethylene, which were hard to ignite, but the polyurethane ignited them and they produced cyanide.
All right, we are joined today by John Watkins, affectionately known as Pyro John Watkins, who reached out to me because I was discussing a previous interview that I did with Angelique McQueen. Now, Angelique had claimed in the interview that when she was married to Adi Despro, I believe is his name, the great white drummer, that pyrotechnics were stored at her house, and that those pyrotechnics had, or pyrotechnic gear, I don't know what you call it, had come from Paul Stanley, and that gear itself, or those effects, were used in Rhode Island and caused the station fire. After I said that, John reached out to me and wanted to set the record straight. He has an incredible resume, which I will have to have him talk through a little bit. And he said, no, that's absolutely not true. And to top it all off, her husband or ex-husband wasn't even the drummer that night at the concert. So how are you doing today, John?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Eric.
Well, thank you. Now, John, because your background is so extensive with Kiss, Van Halen, et cetera, can you tell us about your background and whom you've worked for?
I started my first tour. I started as a security guard for Bill Graham, and I wanted to be a roadie. And so I always looked at lights and sound and stuff. And I never realized I could make a living out of my hobby, which is pyro. I've been growing up in Texas. I love firecrackers and Lone Star. So it was a perfect fit. So my very first tour was with Kiss in 1979, the Dynasty Tour. And from there, I went on to Rick James, Van Halen, Pink Floyd, Journey. When Michael Jackson caught on fire, I was hired to do the entire Victory Tour.
Wow. Okay. So you were hired to replace the people who were working with them at the time?
They weren't going to go on tour, but yeah, they really weren't going to go on tour after that.
Fair enough. Okay. I had actually a question from a community member. So I have something called Locals, and he stated that he was at the first Pink Floyd concert, the Wall concert, when they used pyro in 1980. And at the beginning of the show, they launched pyrotechnics that got up into the overhead curtains about 30 feet up, and they caught fire. They had to stop the show to put it out. He was wondering if you knew anything about that or
It's
were
here.
involved. Okay, you were there. What happened?
My mentor, the actual godfather of rock and roll pyrotechnics, was a man named Hank Schmel, who was hired by Bill Aucoin to take Kiss to the next level. So they started using motion picture level effects on stage for a rock concert, whereas before it just been flash pots and whatnot. Hank worked on the film Tora Tora Tora. He was an Academy Award winner. My resume is nothing compared to his. He was hired to do the Wall. I still got my backstage pass and went up there. And Hank was a consummate professional. And so there was a trick where a plane was going to come down and crash beside the stage, and there's going to be a large lycopodium fireball come up. And everything had been okay, and the fire marshal had signed off on it. And the day of the first show, there was suddenly a big drape hanging right in the area where the pyro was. So Hank said, show me the certs on the drape. Show me the certificates. And the production, I know, don't worry about it. We got it all taken care of. And he goes, no. I need to see the certs on the drape. And the guy said, just blew him off. So there's a thing called the 3-second match test, which could have saved the station fire, by the way, where you'd go and you take an open flame and you put it to the material in question and hold it there for 3 seconds and see if it ignites or if it's the most practical test you could do. So Hank went, before he could even touch the thing to his drape, it started to go up. We were having to pat it out. So Hank said, this drape has to go. It cannot be here for the show. And they said, if you don't like it, we'll get somebody else. So Hank said, we'll get somebody else because I'm not going to do this. So Hank and I went up and we were sitting on the second balcony watching the show, having a cocktail going, well, here goes the plane. Well, here goes the curtain. And they shut the show down for about 20 minutes when they put it out.
Gentleman that asked me about it, Scott, he was at that concert. He was an attendee when it happened. So that's great to get an opportunity to hear a bit what happened behind the scenes. Now, come to think of it, you have other concerts that you've seen disasters, an AC/DC concert, I believe, a Rick James concert. Can you describe a couple of these concerts and other things that you've been through?
Rick James had a stampede in Baton Rouge. They were expecting a couple of thousand people, and they wound up with over 10,000 street songs had just become number one. And they were completely unprepared. And that was horrible. I mean, just the kids just came in a wave, took all the fencing and stuff was not prepared. And so it all went down and people got trampled. At AC/DC at the Salt Palace.
Okay, everybody, hang on. We've got a bit of a problem down the front. If you could just move back 1 foot.
30 years ago, when 3 young people lost their lives at an AC/DC concert.
Several kids got crushed to death. And about 2 weeks before that happened, me and another roadie were going to take drinks out to the soundboard, which is out in the middle of the house. And we got caught in this wash, of humanity and couldn't make it and had to go back and go around and out the back. And he said to me, somebody's going to get killed in this shit. That's more a promoter's thing than it is. The bands just go from place to place. They're not responsible for the seating arrangements or anything like that, or the security or.
And now also your daughter attended the concert where the Las Vegas shooting happened. What happened with that?
She was in front of the stage on the stage left side, probably about 20 yards back, right in the middle of the killing field. This is a hard one to talk about. When the shooting started, she had grown up around pyrotechnics all her life since she was a baby. She's been around it. So when somebody said it's fireworks, she went, and they dropped, and the girl next to her, I understand, got hit, and they ran for their lives. I've got a picture that'll break your heart of her and her true love standing with. You can see the shooter's nest in the background. It's taken about 2 hours before the incident, and she has the most beautiful look on her face, and she's never been the same since.
Thank God. So she did pull through, though. That I was uncertain on that.
Well, she got hit in the back.
She survived.
With pieces of concrete or pieces of, it ricocheted up off the ground. So she had these horribly purple, black marks all up her back. But thank God that's all that happened to her physically. They thought at first that she'd been hit because she had so much blood from the head wound of the girl next to her.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that would be obviously traumatizing forever. And I'm sorry that you went through that. But wow, I mean, you've been around a lot of stuff, either, directly or otherwise. I think you even talked about Altamont, that you were at that concert, which isn't that the first famous concert encounter or
I
disaster?
think so.
Hey man, look, we're splitting. If those cats can't, if you people, we're splitting, man. If those cats don't stop beating everybody up inside, I want them out of the way, man.
If you knew, we didn't stay. It was such an ugly atmosphere, and I was I think a freshman in high school, and my sister had just gotten her license, so she took us and her friend, and we had to park so far away that we could see the bowl, but it was just such an ugly atmosphere, and it was so late, and everything was running so far behind schedule. So I wasn't there for the incident. We went back home.
Thankfully. Wow, it sounds like you established a sixth sense, though, back then, that is carried forward in your career, that you've managed to be near where disastrous things have happened, but not been caught up in it yourself.
Well, Eric, you
Would that
get to
be
be as
fair?
old as I am. You're bound to be around something.
Oh, that's a fair point. So, all right, I wanted to just kind of get your, the basic background, how you've been around, a lot of incidents, a lot of problems with concerts. I'm sure there's even more things that you've seen at concerts that have gone wrong, or, lack of preparation of things. And with this knowledge, you can apply it to what actually happened at the Station Fire. So can we walk through that? The Station Nightclub Fire, where I believe it was over 100 people were sadly, lost their
100
lives,
died,
and over 200
and
people
260 something were injured of the
were
400
injured.
in the building.
Yeah, there's only 400 and some odd people there total, right? So, I mean, it was like the vast majority either perished or were severely injured.
Nobody got out unscathed. The psychological damage
Wow.
for the people that got out, and it's been 20 years. It's still going on. I'm dear friends with one of the survivors that had to have surgery last week. Again,
Oh,
from
wow.
the deep scars that go all the way to the bone, that were, if they heal wrong, they start to cause pain, and they had to
Hmm.
go all the way in again. It's been 20 something years. So
That is horrible. So, all right. Well, to cover what actually did happen, now I want to clear up first off the bad or the information I got, because
Paul Stanley's
I've
never had
listened to you.
pyrotechnics. Paul Stanley doesn't even like pyrotechnics. Gene's the pyro guy
Okay.
in Kiss.
It's important for people to remember that pyrotechnics, by their very nature, are combustible and volatile. So they should only be in the hands of licensed pyrotechnicians. That being said, if you follow the letter of the law, even more importantly, you must use common sense. And common sense should dictate, even with being within the realm of the law, does what you're doing make sense? Is it prudent? When you have lives at stake,
And as a matter of fact, you used to be a stand-in for Gene with Pyro as well,
With fire
correct?
breathing.
Well, that's what I mean. You would perform his stunt.
Well, he wouldn't be there in the afternoon when the fire marshal came in for the demonstration. So I had to learn how to do the fire breathing trick in case the fire marshal wanted to see it.
Okay. And by the way, how was Gene to work with? I get a vibe he was a consummate professional, but I don't know if that's true or not.
Well,
This song means fire, and boom, away we go. Then we'll save our balls of fire for the end. That's fine. Yeah. Okay, and we get. He goes. Yeah.
On fire. Paul goes.
Great.
Gene's a complicated person. If you had a stadium full of assholes, they would elect him their leader. Right?
Okay. Wow. All
But
right.
he's also one of the smartest people I ever met.
Okay. Well, you know what? That might be an interesting parallel, because another band you worked with was Van Halen, and I'm assuming David Lee Roth was there. And there's a famous story with David Lee Roth and the M&Ms.
which was, if you know the story, there was a very good reason for that.
Exactly. A very smart reason for it, that if they got the M&Ms wrong, he knew that they had to do full safety checks on everything because the venue had no attention to detail.
Well, the M&Ms were listed in the rider without explanation, saying there will be no brown M&Ms in the dressing room. There'll be this many M&Ms in the dressing room available for the band, but there will be no brown ones, which meant a production assistant had to sit there and pick out every brown one. But if they went in the dressing room and saw brown M&Ms, that means the promoter did not either read the rider or didn't care about what it said.
So I brought that up for a reason, because it comes across like an asshole rock star.
I'm not saying he wasn't an asshole. I'm saying in this case, there was a reason.
Okay. So two things can be true at once then. Okay. So there was a reason Andy is an asshole. Is there anyone who was a pleasure to work with?
Ronnie James Dio was always a perfect gentleman.
Ronnie James Dio. Why do John Watkins and his special firework effect for over 50,000 miles?
Playing that most of the time, the oil doesn't need to be changed. The transmission works almost every time. And this man can blow us anything that moves.
Really? Okay.
Steve Perry was always nice to me. And
Okay.
Van Halen was the career that I would do anything for them, anytime, anywhere. I mean, they were always a joke. I did very little with them when Dave was there. I was almost at every concert that after Sammy took over until their manager died.
Oh, okay. So you were with them for a while.
Yeah, about 13 tours. Something.
Wow, that's amazing. And are the standards different overseas than they are here? I'm just curious. Like, I mean, would you go overseas and do the same shows, or would you have to do it without pyro overseas? How does that work?
Well, when we went to Japan with Van Halen, and we had a huge Van Halen sign that I designed. It was 24 foot by 12, made out of mirror, that had 600 pyro devices on it. It would come down, it would explode and then burn during the very end of the encore. And they wouldn't let us use or import our pyrotechnic devices. So we wound up having to use these little sparkler devices they manufactured in Japan and run Scotch tape dipped in gunpowder to each one, so it would light. But and they wouldn't let us use any concussions. So we go right up to the maximum amount of concussion powder they would allow. And then we sat there, and I had people just wrapping them in electrical tape and wrapping them. They came out looking like mice. So I put little whiskers on them and called them rat bob.
That is funny. Okay. Wow. All right. Okay. So getting back to the Station Nightclub Fire, can we set up the premise? Because I feel like there's a lot of complex nature to what happened. It's not a perfect parallel, but it's kind of like the Alec Baldwin shooting on the movie set, or the Brandon Lee shooting on the movie set. Like, if one thing in between wasn't there, then the whole thing could be averted, or it may not have been as traumatic of an event. Is that fair?
It's very fair. You could not sit there. Everybody that was responsible could point their finger at somebody else. Yes, I did this, but he did this. It took this perfect chain of stupidity. They had 5 links to it to make it happen. Of these 5 individuals, any one of them, if they had gone by the law or they'd used common sense, it never would have happened. So any one of them could have stopped it, but all of them were necessary for it to happen.
So can we go through theirs? I'm going to guess, is the first link the fire inspector?
No, the first link is the person that sold the product to somebody that was unlicensed.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Let's start with that, because that'll help clear up the question about it being stored at her house or not at her house, or whatever.
I don't know this lady. I know that
Right.
Great White was the opening act on Van Halen's Revenge tour. And I got to know them really well, which is why I wound up doing their video, Call It Rock and Roll. Never, ever did I give pyro to Paul Stanley or any member of Great White. just did not happen. I mean, that stuff is regulated, it's counted, it's controlled.
Well, what I'm understanding from another interview I was listening to you, that the person who bought the pyro bought it from a supply house or whatever it is who did not have the best standards in the world, and they actually forged a name on the document of somebody else to obtain the pyros. Can you break that down, or am I
It was
incorrect?
bought through a guy called Randy Bast, who owned High Tech Special Effects in Memphis, Tennessee, and was manufactured then by a company called Pyropack. It was in Huntsville, Alabama. And Randy Preside, the road manager for Great White, was Dan Bichelle, who had bought the same effects from Randy on a previous tour for Wasp. The exact same gerbs that caused the Station Nightclub Fire, set off by Dan Bichelle, was done in the station with owner Jeff Derderian present 2 years before the fire when Wasp played there. So them saying they knew nothing about pyro ever being used in the station is a biggest fabrication imaginable. It was not only done there, it was of the same effect and done with the same road manager. So
Wow, and that time nothing happened.
no.
So that's kind of
But then
freaky.
the owners hadn't glued the polyurethane to the walls at that time. So
Okay, so there was something that changed
yeah.
between that concert and the other. Okay. Okay, so let's
So
go back to that now.
Number one, the guy that sold it without a license. And the license they sold it under happened to be a guy that used to work for me. And he knew nothing about this guy. Is the most consummate professional you ever want to meet. He works for Disney now. He's asked for years. All of a sudden, he's got the ATF at his door saying, hey, you killed 100 people. Like, what? They just put his license number in there.
Were there any ramifications for their doing this? Because that seems like fraud. I mean, we're talking, partial responsibility here, and isn't that fraudulent?
So many people made deals to rat on each other in this thing that a lot of things that should have been prosecuted never were.
Okay, so whatever happened to the supply house that sold that? I think I heard in the other interview that it didn't work out well for the owner.
Well, the owner of the manufacturer, they got sued for $1 million and lost their license.
Okay.
The owner of the manufacturer was a man that I had known since 1979, when he came around and he was hanging around KISS because he wanted the KISS contract, which was the biggest contract. And Hank Schmel told me, I said, watch out for this guy. He's dangerous. He's going to hurt somebody someday. Because I'm a designer operator, which means I can buy the best effect I want or have the best effect I want made specifically. I don't manufacture them and make them or make money that way. My money's made is a very specific way. This guy manufactured, but not like in California, there's specialty houses that manufacture special effects for the entertainment industry. You're licensed, you're going to motion picture, you're going to things like that. This guy wanted to sell them to the public and he'd do a tour like KISS because they say, hey, be like KISS. And you could go into a lighting supply house and buy effects like KISS had.
Not cool at all. So what you did essentially is you designed it and then they would manufacture to your specifications.
Yes.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. All right, so that's the first part of the chain, that there were effects sold that should not have been sold and used at that location. So what was the next leg that broke down?
Jack Russell, the lead singer of Great White. It was Jack Russell's Great White, which was not the Great White everybody knows. which is why he had session musicians under contract playing that night, with the exception of the guitar player. But that was the biggest blessing in disguise for the other three members, the drummer and the bass player, because Ty lost his life. But they had to sign contracts saying that they were not members of Great White and that they were salaried. And so when the lawsuits came after the thing, they were immune because they said, hey, it was Jack. But Jack made the decision to use the pyro. He made the decision to shoot it that night. He told, Dan, the road manager, was an employee. He wanted to please his boss, as most people do, and he did as he was told. But the decision was Jack's. And the reason for that is because Great White, Jack had already filed for bankruptcy. They were not Great White anymore. They were playing places the size of the station. And yeah, we want to put on a big rock show and make it look like an arena. But if you don't have the personnel there and you start cutting edges and you have a guy whose job is to sing, making managerial decisions, there's a problem.
I wish there was something I could have done to stop that. I wish I had a magic dream the night before. I wish that was in my everyday job to go around, look at the ceilings and check the foam, and I would have found out that foam was illegal and I would have had to tear them down and I would have closed the club, but that was not my job.
Right.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
When I did the video, Call It Rock and Roll, which we shot in Riverside, I had a list of effects they wanted. And I came in and we went into the Civic Center there, and I'm looking at the ceiling, which is about as high as the ceiling in my house. I'm going, wait a minute, this is not gonna fly. And right away, before the fire marshal even got there, we axed half the effects they wanted. And it just so happens Hank Schmel happened to live in Riverside, and he came down and helped on that show. What the video shows is Hollywood magic. There's a scene where there's the firefall people are used to seeing, where the sparks come cascading down from the steel and the band's playing. If you look closely, you'll see that it's shot from the audience perspective. There's nobody in the building, and those gerbs are actually over the concrete going straight on the floor, and they're shooting the band through those. It was there's huge flash pots that go off. Those were actually on the roof of the Civic. They weren't even in the concert. We shot them separately. I never had one problem with Jack or the band that whole day. Anything I said, I was in charge.
Did the band perform in front of a green screen, and then you just, through the trickery of editing or whatever, laid the band in front of the effects that you
the arena
filmed?
There was only one effect that was a major flash that was actually done in front of the live audience.
And that gave the impression that there was a live audience the whole time.
So what I knew about Great White, though, was that they never said, break the law. I said, hey, the fire marshal said, we can't have this. They said, fine. We worked around it, and the last thing Jack said to me was, I wish we could afford to take you with us all the time. That still kind of haunts me a little bit. Like almost everybody in this chain, it's well-meaning people who just did stupid things. Nobody expected this fire to, nobody had any idea that, such a catastrophe could happen, from something so simple. The gerbs that,
what is a gerb? Can you break that down?
Is an expensive fountain. It emits a shower of sparks, but unlike a safe and sane, it's highly engineered. So it'll go to a certain height and last a certain duration. So you'd have something like they use at the station, which is a 15 by 15, which meant it went 15 feet for 15 seconds. Okay. But you could actually put your hand in them. They're
wow.
if you're not by the port of fire where it's being ignited and expelled, it's like the sparks of a grinding wheel.
Okay.
It really should. It's probably the safest pyro effect you can think of.
Wow. Okay. I live in Hampton, Virginia, and we have a fireworks show every year. And one of the parts is there's a bridge going over the downtown, and it rains fire like down into the river. Would that be the gerbs, possibly?
It's called a waterfall gerb.
Okay.
Inverted gerb going up, a gerb. Firefall is a waterfall gerb or an inverted gerb.
Okay. And it's relatively safe then, especially outdoors and over a river, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I used to do the inspection with fire marshals, I'd do the trick where I put my hand in it, and I'd even do a cartwheel through it. And Hank used to straddle and let it hit it in the nuts when he did the demo.
Okay.
But we knew something. The fire marshal did. We were just trying to get permit, and we knew it was safe. A trained pyrotechnician would have known it wasn't safe in the station because the clearance wasn't right. And
yeah, can we go into details now? Why was it not safe? What was wrong with that environment?
Well, it had
specifically
polyurethane foam to deaden the sound all along the walls and the ceiling, and spray painted back, which made it even more flammable. They call that stuff liquid gasoline because it burns as fast. And in the drummer's alcove were these bricks of foam that were polyethylene, which were hard to ignite, but the polyurethane ignited them and they produced cyanide.
Oh my God. Wow. Okay. So what should be used? Because I'm guessing that there are acoustic panels or something that are deemed or rated for this type of
there's flame retardant foam, and as we used to say to Michael Jackson, those kind of thrills cost money. I mean, the difference between packing foam and chemically treated foam, big difference. They could have bought the right foam.
Okay, so that was one factor. So you essentially had a flammable wall situation where something could catch and then burn even further because of the polyethylene underneath.
You got the elements of fire: fuel, heat, and oxygen. You need those three. So you had the heat source from the gerb, you had the fuel from the foam, and for a little bit of time you had the oxygen, but then you had cyanide.
Wow. Now, did anyone succumb from cyanide
Most
gas?
of them.
I had no idea. Wow. That is so scary. Okay. Another thing that I understand that was a factor is that the club was grandfathered in on a sprinkler system, and that a sprinkler system maybe could have mitigated a lot of the overall damage. Is that fair?
It's more than fair. The National Fire Association rebuilt the stage and area with sprinklers, and it put the fire out. The alarm wouldn't even have sounded.
Wow. That's just sad to hear. Okay, so what was the?
Okay, so we've got the guy who sold it. We got the guy who decided to use it. We got Dan Michelle, who put the battery to the thing. He set it up. He's a link in the chain.
Now, who was this person? From what I understand, that out of a lot of the people involved, the guy who actually set it off, or the roadie, or what, I don't know what his role was, road manager, that he has shown remorse. Like he wasn't just mocking everybody, or am I incorrect?
Oh, everybody circled their wagons and lawyered on stuff like that, except for Dan. It broke his heart. he immediately told everything he knew to the fire marshals, was completely cooperative. When he got charged, he pled no contest. He accepted his punishment, and he wrote a personal letter to every victim's family, expressing how sad he was, and it wasn't fake. And many of the survivors, they're such loving, forgiving people that's really all they wanted, from somebody. And they go, of all the people that could have made a difference, he was the only one that said he was sorry and actually looked like he meant it. So he did his jail time.
I heard that the owner was across the street or on a cell phone the whole time. Is that accurate?
If you want to be kind. He's coming up next. Dan. Then you have the two club owners, Michael Derderian and his brother, Jeffrey. Michael's the one that was like the businessman, the smart one. And Jeffrey to me was like the Fredo of the Derderian family. I'm smart. I can do stuff. So, and Jeffrey was the one that was there that night. He's given several different accounts. None of them make sense. The only times he is actually seen or known to be seen is evidence shows that he was probably one of the first people out the door, because even though he says he got an extinguisher and he did that, the stampede shown in the Butler film, and Butler was filming backwards. You don't see him. And the woman.
All right, can we back up a second, because I think that will help set the stage a little. Butler was somebody from a news station that the owner worked at, because the owner was a reporter and he wanted to advertise the club.
Jeff was a news reporter, on air talent.
Okay.
There had been a stampede in Chicago at a nightclub a few days before where some people got killed. So they were going to do a show on nightclub safety, and he had an Ireland club. So he actually, just by chance, had this cameraman there that night. You watch the video, and it's called getting B-roll. So he just came in and just went all around the club, and you see so many people there interviewed that got killed. And then he should have been done, but he decided to just stop, and he films Great White coming on stage. So he gets the gerbs going off. It's a non-stop from there until the roof collapses. I mean, it's a long video, but he never stops rolling. When you see the fire going up the walls and people start to yell, there's a fire, there's a fire, he goes to the front door. Butler's one of the first people out too, but he goes backwards, so he's catching the fire and the people starting to stampede. But you can see who's where, who's doing what, and who's not where they say they are. The first time you see Jeff in the video is he's coming back across the parking lot towards the thing, because he had taken the cash register from the rear bartender and went and stashed it in the woods. So he comes back. Then you see him the next time. There's a sign that says Budweiser, and the station presents Great White. He's trying to get he sees Butler filming. He's trying to get the sign down, and he disappears. And the next time you see him is Butler's is by his news van, and you see him silhouetted against the fire on the phone to his brother. And he then goes across the street and hides between two cars at the car lot, where and waits for his father to show up.
Wow. So not a good representation. And this is the guy who, I guess, was the manager that evening or in charge.
Well, if he was captain of a ship, he would have dressed up like a woman and gotten on the first lifeboat. That's my opinion. He did not do that.
About
And
now, did he ultimately serve time at least, or pay any penalty?
no, his brother served the time. They made a
Really?
deal. So
Wow. And his brother wasn't even
No.
there. How does that work? Okay. I'm sorry. I know that's not
happy.
your.
There was never a trial. They never got the answers they wanted.
So the only two people. How many people actually paid a penalty or served time criminally for this?
Serving time was Jeff and Dan, the road manager and the club owner.
Okay. Oh, so Jeff did serve time.
I mean, Michael.
Michael. Okay. Sorry. So wow, out of all that, those are the only two. All right. So what was the next link?
Well, the final one, that's 4, is my number 1. And then, even though they're all responsible, Rocky the fire marshal, the man who was in charge of inspecting the building, that should have seen the foam on the walls and claims he just didn't see it. Of everybody involved, this is the one that gave an oath to protect the public. This is the guy who looked on better, had the training and stuff like that. And he hid behind his immunity as a public servant. In his grand jury testimony, all he said was, I just didn't see it.
Now, was he also the fire inspector who would tell them to remove a door that was opening the wrong way, and they would just pull it off the hinges and then put it right back, and then you would bust them the next year for the exact same thing?
Yes. That same marshal. That's what he wrote him up for. He came back into the club, saw the door had been removed, and then signed off on the club saying it was all up to code.
Okay, so that obviously, if he shut the club down, forced those sprinklers, said, "Hey, this is the wrong material on the walls," any and one of all these things could have made
You've
a
done what Hank
difference, right?
Schmel did at Pink Floyd and said, "Show me the certificate on this material," and if you don't have it, done a match test, he would have known.
Now, there was one more element in there, and I don't know who would be responsible for that, but from my understanding, there was an exit that only the band was allowed to use, and they wouldn't let the public actually go through that exit, which could have added
That was the double
to
screen
the
door you're
carnage.
talking about. And
Hmm.
there's so many kind of red herrings, very, very Kennedy-ish. I mean, to me, the Butler film is like this is a Bruder film. I've gone over it frame by frame. The door had extra foam on it because the residents in the area were right behind that side of the building. And so they had to put up the extra foam for the sound. Never was that. It could have been a problem, but it wasn't because it was open. It never impeded anybody's egress. So even though it's something you point your finger to that shouldn't have been, it didn't make any difference.
Hmm. Okay.
The security guard is pictured. That picture I sent you of the fire breaking out.
Yes, where they're smoking over the explosive box.
See, that's when the fire, this courtesy of Mr. Davidson, who just happened to be there as a photographer that night. Here is the box of pyro. Here is the security guard smoking. Here is Dan trying to find an extinguisher, of which there were none.
Hmm.
And there is the drummer that was not the drummer married to your friend.
Now, did the drummer
Yeah,
survive?
that's him right there.
Okay, one of the band members
All right,
perished
Ray
too, if I
Longley,
recall, right?
the guitar player.
Was he an original Great White guitar player, or was he also a session player?
Hired gun, they call him.
There you go. Man,
He
what a
went
guy.
back either for his guitar, and his friend was there too. It's hard to explain. Nobody expected this thing to erupt the way it did. In less than 1 minute, it was over. I mean, the entire building was engulfed, sprayed. And then going out the front door, which was the door you're talking about, yes, this guy with the cigarette over the pyro told people it was band only and sent several people to the morgue by making them go out towards the only way they knew to get in, which was the front door. The front door had a hallway. There was a door, a turn, and the ticket booth. And so everybody tried to go out this one 36-inch opening. And then when people started to trip and fall, they patched up like cordwood. And in the Butler video, you see them so they can't get out. They're floor to ceiling, faces screaming with their hands sticking out, burning.
Oh my God, that's so scary. Now, what was the actual capacity of the club and how many people were in there? Was it overfilled with people too?
That's like most things, it's complicated. Legally, I think it was very close to the 400 and something that Rocky had finally approved. Obviously, it was overcrowded. There was a door in the rear by the kitchen that the sound man and the rear, and they took several people out that door. They walked right out. There was no problem. But everybody, it only took seconds for this thick black smoke, so dark that they thought the lights had gone out, to come down. And there was maybe, they said, 6 inches of between it and the floor. So everybody was blind as to where they were going. So it all just packed up into this one little corridor trying to get out that was corked up like a bad champagne.
Wow.
So most of the people died right there.
It's horrible. Now, okay, we're talking about all the failures in this, and sometimes I want to try to look at the other side. Were there any heroes in this mix? Were there any people who went above and beyond and did the right thing and really made any kind of difference?
Absolutely.
Or would that be Dan?
Huh? Well, no, and look, he didn't run away. He stood there and tried to move a fire hose. There were policemen and firemen standing in the blaze, and we're talking hot, pulling people out. All of them said that Jeff, the owner, comes out and tried to move the sign. They said he never approached the building. He never tried to help anybody. So he doesn't go in the heroes. There was a guy named Tracy King who was a huge bouncer for the club, who's in the Butler video. He'd been on David Letterman doing stupid human tricks. That was like they described as the gentle giant. He went back in the building and saved at least 3 people by throwing, I think he was throwing them out a window, and he died.
Wow. Oh.
The bartender and the ticket taker that Jeff had to walk by to get out of the building both died. So he had 3 employees die. All to me were heroes. I mean,
amazing.
But especially Tracy, he stayed in the building. Now, my hero was a guy I actually knew, named Jeff Rader. That was a local. I'm in California. He was a local roadie, and his girlfriend lived in New England, so he was their visitor, and he just happened to be there that night. And the last picture taken from inside is a picture of him standing there with the whole place on fire behind him, just drinking a beer, going. I mean, he saw the pile, he saw the door behind him. He's like, okay.
Wow, and he didn't make it. That's tragic. Okay, this is such a difficult subject. Let's try to go with the bright side now. Has some good come out of this?
There are so many people that you can be hate and mad, and that's not how I try to. My study of this is primarily been directed at what can we do? What can we learn? What can happen?
Yes, please.
One of the survivors is very instrumental in advocating for sprinklers. A lot of places have now, sprinklers would have made all the difference. What you learn from this fire is people are stupid, they're incompetent, and they're you can't trust your government, and you can't trust your club owners like that. You got to take personal accountability for your own safety, which means when you go into a place like this, you need to not ruin your night, but you need to know where the exits are. You need to just take a moment. Same thing's true of being on an airplane. When an airplane actually crashes, there's so much smoke that if you haven't counted the number of rows, you don't know where the exit is. So these are all lessons that can be learned from the fire. So
you mentioned the exits. In concerts I've been to recently in Las Vegas, I know I went there. Also here where I am in Hampton, Virginia, I've noticed that they say before the show starts, they've started pointing out exits. Is this
yes,
out of this
directly? I used to work for Bill Graham Presents in San Francisco, who used to be the big promoter of all promoters. And after the fire, they started making announcements from the station, almost like a stewardess going, the exits are here, the exits are here, the exits are here. Yeah. Which is a good thing. Sprinklers is a good thing. There still is right now on Amazon and at Walmart, you could buy something that produces the exact same sparks as set this Station Nightclub on fire without a license, without anything, because instead of a pyrotechnic material, lighting it and shooting it, these are titanium particles. Same thing as in the station, but they heat them on an element and use a blower to send them. So they're selling these things.
Are these equally as dangerous? Oh, great.
See, doesn't that look like familiar? Like the gerbs from the
yeah.
It's just the port of fire is not there, which on a gerb, you can't stick your hand down there. You'd be horribly burned. But if you put it up here, but this is still hot enough. This is exactly like the sparks off a grinding wheel, or if you're ever a Boy Scout, a flint and steel. It's all done under this myth called the cold fire spark. That's how they sold the gerbs. That's how they market this something. It's a cold fire effect. Nobody knows. That's what is regurgitated by salesmen. They don't know what they're talking about. It's just a sales point. A cold fire spark only means it's burning out. It is not. It's not producing any new energy. Once it's lit, it goes out. It has nothing to do with being cold, and they're not cold, but it sounds good.
That makes sense. So it's like a spark going out.
Like over
the second you see it, it's starting to finish.
Like a meteor that doesn't have a sun inside it. There's no new energy being produced. On a firework, it goes up in the air, and then there's a secondary explosion. This is just sparks being emitted. But to use this loophole that it's not a pyrotechnic device because it's just makes it no less dangerous. That's like saying, well, yeah, they shot me with a 22 instead of a 357. It was less than, but I wouldn't care for it. So
wow, and those are being sold freely. There's just nothing
on Amazon right now, and put cold fire spark machine. It'll come up, and then I looked at even closer, and in these come from China. I looked even closer, and in the invoice it says confetti machine. There's no confetti. It is.
I'm concerned about that because like you showed that wedding shot, and I'm from Tucson originally. You're I think in Vegas now or whatever. there are very real concerns using something like that in an outdoor wedding can start a forest fire, for God's sake.
Well,
I would
much
think.
like we said about the owner of Pyropack, that he was a accident waiting to happen. One of these coal fire machines did, in fact, start a fire and has killed people just a couple of years ago. So I don't have that information right
And
here,
it,
but it's
well, I'll get that from you and insert it in the video. So, but they're still sold. So, I mean, can we get them off the market? Is there, or are they like turkey fryers that they're just going to always be a
They're going to
problem?
always be a problem. Except that they were able to get Walmart to stop selling ammunition after Columbine. I think if enough people bitch, Walmart will take it off. I don't know about Amazon; they seem to be soulless. But the man who took the photographs, the iconic photographs on stage, is very involved in trying to get these machines outlawed, or not sold, but it comes to that very
Right.
specific thing. Well, then people can get around a law if they really want to. If they really want to have spark effect,
Sure.
they could have 6 people on stage with grinders making an effect, and that would be legal.
Hmm.
Stupid and expensive, but legal.
Okay. Well, fair enough. Fair enough. All right. What I like to do with these interviews is I like to ask a final question, and God only knows how it's going to go, but it's, what is the one question I should have asked you, but I did not ask you?
How did I get to be Seeley?
Or, okay. How did you get away?
Genetics. So good looking.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Or as an alternative, what is the one question you've been waiting for somebody to ask you, but they never have?
How about the one question I could ask somebody?
Okay.
The Durdarian brothers tried to resurrect their reputation. They hired a publicity. This was a couple of years ago. They hired a publicity company, and they had their friend write this book that is the biggest piece of propaganda garbage you ever saw. And part of their way of weaseling out that the public should take them back in is implying that it was part of the culture, that Rhode Island was mob influenced, and doing things like paying off fire marshals for permits and stuff was standard business. If you can't change the past, and I'm all for forgiveness, but I also believe the only way we're going to get any positive change is for people to tell the truth about what happened. And I would love to sit Michael Durdarian down and say, yes, we will take you back into the family if you tell us, did you pay the fire marshal or not? Yes or no. Don't imply it or hide behind it, because that has everything to do with this guy's immunity. It has everything to do with how things are going to go forward. It has everything to do with how the fire happened. And they are keeping their mouths shut about that. So if I could ask any question, it would be, did you pay the fire marshal?
That would be a great question. And I don't think, if he was to say it, new charges could come up for everybody involved.
Rocky's long since retired. Of course, there's no
statute of limitations on homicide. That's correct. So if technically that would pierce any immunity.
Yes. 100 people died, and it was not necessary.
To end on a more pleasant note, can you tell me your favorite moment from a rock concert in your past, or something you're most proud of, that we could go out on a high note?
My it evolved over time, but my biggest effect ever was this Van Halen sign that I mentioned before. It was 24 foot by 12. Had 600 things on it. Never been done. Didn't know if it was going to work or not. So the band invested a whole lot of money, and we did tests and stuff like that, but nobody knew for sure what was going to happen. And we're in Tampa at the very first show of Monsters of Rock, and two of these things come down on the chain motors, and I'm actually right behind one, and I'm just going, okay. So I hit that button, and that stadium lit up. I mean, and I felt the heat from behind me, and it worked. And the cheers that came up, that was probably my finest moment.
Awesome. And now you've documented your finest moments. I understand that you have a book and it's available on Amazon. Put a link in the description so people can learn more about your hijinks and what you've done with all these different bands through your
This is
book.
my
Is
book
that
of
correct?
torturing famous people. As a
Okay.
pyrotechnician, I don't care who you are. That's why the book's called Don't You Know Who I Think I Am? So you could be Garth Brooks, or you could be Yoko, you could be anybody. If I come up to you, I'm not asking for an autograph. I'm coming up to you because you're in a pyro area and you have to move. And fire doesn't give a fuck how famous you are. So these are a collection of some of the funnier things I've got meeting celebrities. And it's
Well, awesome. So people should love that. That's kind of got a little bit of juicy gossip and everything there. John, thank you so much for coming on and giving me more information about what is happening. And I hope to explore this maybe more in the future with some
I appreciate
other
you too.
folks.
And I
So
sat there
thank you.
and when I heard you say that thing, I said, I love your show. I go, why is he passing on this, this and staying none of that happened. So I sat there and I wrote you, and I never expected to hear back from you. So God bless you, and I appreciate you actually caring about passing on the truth.